everyone, and welcome to the channel. My name is Shania, and this is Talking Crime. On today's video, we're going to go over a story that a young lady tells about her ancestry DNA. You guys, let's get started on this young lady's story. And don't forget to like, comment, and definitely subscribe. So let's get started.
I found out at 37 years old that my dad, who was my everything, was not my biological dad. And it rocked my world. Let's get into it. I did my Ancestry DNA kit over 9 years ago, and everything came back normal and exactly what I expected. My dad told me he was Pennsylvania Dutch and German, which is exactly what my DNA came back as. And my mom told me that she was Irish, Welsh, and English, which is exactly what it came back as. So I had no reason to think anything otherwise. And because I was one of the first ones to do the DNA kit, nobody really was showing up as a match, right? And gradually over time, more and more family members matched with me. So I get this random message from this woman, and she says, "Hey, I just linked with you. You are my highest family match. And I had found out that my dad that raised me was not my biological dad. I was wondering if you knew who he was, because I'm 56 years old and I live in Texas." I was super confused. I'm an only child. So I didn't know if maybe one of my uncles had an oops or something, but then I'm like, well, that kind of doesn't make sense. So I really struggled with trying to figure out who this person was. After looking at my own DNA, I had noticed that a lot of my mom's family members were linking with me, my aunts, my uncles, my cousins. But this person wasn't linking with them. So I'm like, okay, it's got to be from my dad's side. But then I started to realize that nobody on my dad's side was popping up. But I just thought that nobody did their DNA, So I was like, all right, well, let me reach out to my cousin and see if they've done their DNA. So I texted my first cousin and I was like, hey, has anybody done their ancestry DNA? And she responded back like a couple hours later and she was like, oh yeah, we've all done it. I was like, well, why are you guys not linking with me then? So after sitting in my car for 20 minutes trying to wrap my head around the information that I just learned and how my dad may not be my biological dad, I get on Ancestry and I start looking at the matches, because these matches, I don't have anybody that is matching me from an aunt, uncle, first cousin perspective. Nothing. It's second, third, fourth. So I start coming up and I'm seeing a pattern. Stay tuned for part 2.
That is scary. Now, almost everybody's story leads up to this point of, somebody reaching out on Ancestry that eventually took the test, because it's a lot of people that have it. Imagine if everybody does it. Imagine if everybody does it. But so far, like somebody reaching out to you saying, hey, I think we can, that is kind of scary. So of course, like, it leaves a lot of mystery in your head, especially if your family members that not matching up. So let's get started with her second part of her story.
My DNA story part 2. So I find a pattern on Ancestry and I recognize the last name. Once I figure out the last name, I then really start to freak out because I know this last name. And then I start thinking about my past relationship with this person and try to see if I could connect any dots there. I start to remember that every year this guy would buy me birthday presents. And we're not talking like little birthday presents. We're talking like nice birthday presents, This is someone that has been a family friend, who has been in my life the whole time, who was my parents' best friend. someone where my dad would go and ride Harleys with, someone my mom would go play pool with. And I'm like, no, no, this can't be. This is someone that I called Uncle Tommy my whole life. So you would think I would be immediately on the phone with my mom or my dad to try to figure out what the hell is going on here. But no, I can't, because they have been long gone. They have been dead for years and years. My mom 15 years, my dad 12. So I didn't know where to go. So I called my mom's sister, who was her best friend, and I just word vomited on her, and I'm crying and I'm hysterical and all the things. And I'm like, what do you think of this? And she said, Brittany, if this is true, your mother told no one. This bitch literally took this shit to the grave. To the grave. So I come home in hysterics to my husband, who was on work calls, and I then tell him everything. And I'm hysterical, obviously, and I'm crying and all the things. And he just sits down and holds me and he says, what are you going to do? I said, well, I guess I have no choice. I'm going to call Uncle Tommy. Follow for part 3.
Yo, when I say that mama was never playing pool with Uncle Tommy, honey, that mama and Uncle Tommy was getting busy. Like, and to think that the man that raised you and Uncle Tommy ride Harleys together, like in a bike club together, like best friends. Jesus. Her mother literally, true meaning of taking something to the grave. Oh my God. That is, man. Keep y'all, listen.
This is my DNA story, part 3. So I called Uncle Tommy, and he happened to be at work, but he was able to talk. And so I was like, hey, I have a random question for you, and I don't know how to ask it, so I'm just going to come out and ask it. And he was like, okay. And I said, are you my father? And he said, wow, what makes you think that? The way that he had said it made it seem like I was way off. So the reaction made me almost take like a breath of fresh air. Like I thought maybe I was wrong. Maybe I had misconstrued something or whatever. But at the end of me explaining how I kind of came down this rabbit hole, he then said, I promised your mother I would never say a word. My heart dropped. And I was like, wait, what? Can you say that again? And so he said it again. And I was like, oh my God, this is real. This is legit. I said, you're going to have to tell me everything now, because this is crazy. And he said, I promise you, I will tell you everything. So he was explaining to me how he was in the Navy, and how him and my mom met up at a bar with a bunch of people who were playing pool, and then they got drunk, and one thing led to another, and it was a one-night stand. Now, my parents weren't married. They'd been together a long time, I think 5-6 years at that point. And my dad had continuously asked my mother every New Year's if she would marry him, and she would always decline. I'm not saying that's right or anything. I'm just saying that for context of the story. So I guess one day in early December, my mom went to him and said, hey, I am pregnant with your child. I want to be with Richie, my dad, and I don't want to be with you. And I want you to take the secret to the grave. You are to tell no one. And I'm going to marry Richie. He is going to be the father of my daughter, and I want to be with him. And that's just how it is. Because he respected my mother so much, he agreed. His only request was that he wanted to continue to be in my life, but in the background. So then when New Year's came around, my dad didn't ask my mom to marry him this time. So my mom was like, hey, Richie, why didn't you ask me to marry you this year? And he said, well, I'm tired of always asking and you saying no. And she said, well, I'm pregnant with your child. Let's get married. And so they got married 3 months later. I then asked if my dad knew, because my dad, as I mentioned before, was my everything. I would not have traded anything for the world. My dad, I loved with my entire heart and soul, and raised me so well. He told me that my dad did not know. And I said, thank God, because that would have devastated him. To find out that one of his best friends is the father of his child, like that would have crushed him. It would have crushed him. Now, here's the big kicker, and the reason that I did not figure out through DNA that Uncle Tommy was my bio dad, and that's because my dad and my bio dad look so similar. If you saw my dad and my bio dad next to each other, you would think they're brothers. Blonde hair, blue eye, mustache, same style nose, that big German nose. Like, they look so similar. It's insane. Stay tuned for part 4.
A hot mess. A hot mess. A hot mess. Literally, the daddy didn't know. The mama took it to her grave. And Uncle Tommy was planning on taking it to his grave too? What? And Uncle Tommy knew that she was all alone eventually. Both parents had passed away. Like, why was you trying to hide it, Uncle Tommy? Like, I don't get it. But, y'all, the family didn't know. The sister did not know. And she was the mother's best friend. Like, this story is crazy. Like, you be right underneath something and you're the family secret and don't even know it. Like, y'all, when I say that this story is crazy, it's literally crazy. So we're going to go to part 4 because she do have a part 4 of this story. Jesus.
This is my DNA story part 4. We start talking some more, and he says, you realize that means you have sisters. And I'm like, oh my God, you're right. I have a 24-year-old stepsister, and I have an 11-year-old half-sister who I've known forever. My stepsister I've known since she was 8 years old, and my sister I've known her whole life. I have pictures of me holding her and giving her a bottle when she was only 6 months old. My bio dad, Uncle Tommy, had married a younger Filipino woman. The crazy part is I have been friends with this woman. His wife is only 10 years older than me. There was a time there back in like 2012 to like 2015-ish where his wife and I talked all the time. And then I found out that she knew the secret the whole time. How do I act? How do I become a sister after never having any? Okay, so let's go back to the original chick that reached out to me on Ancestry, the 56-year-old. So she ended up being my bio dad's half-sister. Essentially, he told me that my grandfather was a truck driving whorebag and had screwed all these women, and there's more siblings coming out of the woodwork. I think they're up to like 9 now. So we chat for a while, and then we hang up, and I go out in the living room and I break down, like full on breakdown. My husband is just holding me, and I am screaming at the top of my lungs because think about it, your entire world just changed. Like, everything that you thought and you knew was different. There was never ever any inkling that this was a thing. You always hear about family gatherings and people getting drunk and something spills out by accident. That never happened. I needed to go to therapy. I immediately made an appointment because this would actually be the first time I ever went to therapy. I went for a month because I had a really hard time handling this. I had to take a week off from work. I just could not function or wrap my head around that. Eventually, over time, I started calling my mom's best friends, people that she was super close to, and there is not one person this woman told. And that is very uncharacteristic of her. She was a loudmouth, she was the life of the party, and she loved to gossip. So the fact that she told 0 people blew my mind. No one knew. So it has turned into a beautiful thing at this point. Then we're having a family vacation in a couple weeks here. It's great, and I love them so much, and I'm building, more and more with them. And it's just turned out to be such a beautiful story in the end. And I'm really happy that it happened this way and not any other way.
Okay. For one, your mother was a loud mouth. She was the life of the party, and she loved to be in drama or talk, right? Gossip. But when it came to her business, mama kept her mouth closed, completely closed, especially if she didn't want her husband to find out. And I don't know, when she said that her father used to propose every new year or whatever, and then this particular new year he didn't, what if he knew but never said anything, or felt something in his gut but never said anything? I mean, I get it. Like, you getting tired of proposing it, she saying no, but what if he did? But anyway, this story is completely crazy, and no wonder why Ancestry is going up with the price of these tests, because it's opening a whole nother dimension, a whole like bag of secrets. Like, it's opening up so much stuff, and it's getting you to know like your basically side of the families that you don't know, and also like where your family generated from and all of that stuff. So it's giving you more than just, matches of people you may be kin to. But this story is crazy, and mama ought to be ashamed, because she went to the grave with her daughter not knowing her biological father, even though he was in their life. Uncle Tommy was Uncle Tommy, but Uncle Tommy was really Uncle Daddy Tom. Anyway, it was her father. So you guys, don't forget to like, comment, definitely subscribe to this channel, comment what you thought about this story time, and don't forget to share and like this video. Thanks for watching, you guys. Peace.